Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Cuz You Don't Know Football. And today, guys, as we get closer to the end of the season, I felt like we needed some alone time. We didn't need anybody else. So for today, it's just me and you. Hey! Don't act like y'all know the song. Don't worry about nothing, babe. As y'all can see, I'm in a real good mood today. So we gonna get down on this week. What week we in? Hold on, I don't even know what week we in. We in week this week 15. No, I lied. I lied. It's not week 15, it's week 16. I think. Yes, it's week 16. We're gonna get on these week 16 games. It's a lot going on. Um, Probably gonna spend a little bit more time on this one, but I think y'all gonna like this because we're gonna put a little spin on today and how this is gonna roll. We're gonna go through probably more games, and we're gonna talk about what this means. We're not only just gonna break down the stats and what happened in the game, but we're gonna talk about what this means for these teams going. You know what I mean, as we get closer to the playoffs. Y'all know where we at. Y'all know what we're talking about. So we're gonna start in this game. So here's the game we're gonna start with. The Thursday night game. The Rams, they beat the Saints 30-22. Let's see some stats. I do losing teams first. So Derek Carr was 20 of 40, 20 of 40, 27 of 40. I'm sorry, y'all. 27 of 40 for 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. They did absolutely nothing on the ground. Alvin Kamara had 20 yards rushing. Excuse me, 19. Chris Olave, he had 9 receptions for 123 yards with no touchdowns. And then Rashid Shaheed, he had a touchdown. He also had 70 yards receiving. Juwan Johnson, he had one receiving touchdown. And A.T. Perry had a receiving touchdown as well. Now let's get to the Rams. Matthew Stafford was 24-34 for 328, 2 touchdowns and no picks. Kyren Williams, he had 22 carries for 104 yards and a touchdown. Yeah, my man is balling right now. And and Puka Nakua, he had 9 receptions for 164 yards and a touchdown. And Demarcus Robinson also had 82 yards receiving with 1 touchdown. First of all, no, let me start with the Saints. Listen, the Saints right now, no, excuse me, not the Saints. Excuse me. Let me start with the Rams right now. Listen, the Rams right now, they looking like they ready to advance in the NFC. Like they're definitely going to be a playoff team, and I want to see their first round matchup because depending on that matchup, I don't know. I might have to take them. I might have to take the Rams in the first round because did you know that the NFC only has 4 teams that are above 500? It's the Eagles, the 49ers, the Cowboys, and there is a fourth one. Hold on, I'm gonna tell you guys. Give me 1 second. Let's get to some standings. There we go. Eagles, Cowboys, 49ers, and Lions. Those are the only teams that have like these crazy records. So I'm depending on the matchup, I might listen. Rams look good, you know. And as far as the Saints go, this has been a rough year for me. For somebody who thought the Saints would be good and believed that the Saints would be good, they are making it hard to believe in them. This game actually wasn't as close as it looked. So 30 to 22, it looks like all right, they lost by 8. Nah, they lost by 2 scores. That's they made it up at the end, but they lost by 2 scores. Um, for me, I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm not sure what that means in terms of the NFC South, but I know they got an elimination game this upcoming week with the Bucks. So I'm very curious to see what happens with that. But in terms of what's going on right now, boy, Saints fans, it's been a long year, hasn't it? It has been a long year. Um, all right, well, let's go into these the Steelers Bengals game. The Steelers put a whooping on the Bengals 34-11. I don't even want to read the stats to this. I was waiting for this to happen. Like the Bengals just been playing way above their heads and been playing better than anybody could have predicted. So this stomping, I kind of expected it. I think it's unfortunate. It's just a little too late for the Steelers. Um, but um, but yeah, I think these are two teams that are good. If everything was put together and didn't have the injuries they had, both of them could be in the playoffs. But I really do think both of them will not be in the playoffs. All right. All right. Let's go to this Buffalo Chargers game. Boy, I tell you what, Buffalo knows how to make you work for a win. Buffalo knows how to make you sit there and sweat about what it is that they are. So let's look at some stats with that. Easton Stick was 23 of 33 for 215 yards. Luckily, he didn't have any touchdowns or picks. Austin Ekeler led them in rushing with 65 yards. Easton Stick also had a rushing touchdown. And what we got? Joshua Palmer led them in receiving with 47 yards, and they had no receiving touchdowns. And then the Bills, Josh Allen was 15-21 for 237 yards, one touchdown, and one pick. And James Cook had 20 carries for 70 yards. Josh Allen also had 2 rushing touchdowns. And Gabe Davis had a crazy game, 4 receptions, 130 yards, and a touchdown. Boy, it's funny that this happened in this game, but the Chargers, excuse me, the Bills are so up and down that it's hard to get a pulse on what they're going to be week to week. We all know the ceiling for Buffalo is so high. We know they can beat anybody when they're playing right. We just know their flow is their flow. No, their flow too. Their flow is very low as well, but their floor is very low, and you never know what team you're going to get week to week, and it makes it very hard to pick them because they're both of them teams. They're the team that can beat anybody, and they're also the team that can lose to anybody. That makes it very annoying. I think like this game should have been a blowout. They were 9-point favorites. They were 9-point favorites in this game. They should have been a blowout, but of course, the Chargers even looked like they were going to win the game. And it's interesting because you always hear what I say about the Chargers. The Chargers are the Bills. The Chargers are the Bills. Like the second that you feel as though that they're taking this quantum leap, they lose or almost lose to this team that's a scrub, and you're like, well, you're supposed to be a lot better than that. So, I think no, I know Buffalo's gonna find their way in the playoffs. I got to look at their matchups to see where I feel about them coming into the playoffs. But Buffalo will be a team in the playoffs. You'll see them. We'll see more Josh Allen. That's cool. All right, here we go. We're going to move on to the Detroit Lions beating the Minnesota Vikings 30-24. And this game looked interesting for a minute. I'm not going to lie to you. This game was a little interesting. Because Detroit almost lost Nick Mullins. It got iffy. Detroit almost lost to Nick Mullins, and that would have been hilarious. But Nick Mullins was 22 of 36 for 411 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 4 picks. So, they did absolutely positively nothing on the ground. Their leading rusher had 17 yards. Justin Jefferson had 6 receptions, 441 yards, and a touchdown, and a crucial 4th down reception. He seems to always do stuff like that. That's why, to me, he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. Because, man, when you need him, boy, he shows up. All right. So then KJ Osborne also had 5 receptions for 95 yards and a touchdown. And TJ Hockenson had 4 receptions for 58 yards. And we'll go one more down. Brandon Powell also had 53 yards receiving. The Lions, Jared Goff was 30 or 40 for 257 yards and 1 touchdown. Luckily, no picks. Jahmyr Gibbs led them in rushing with 15 carries for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. And David Montgomery had 17 carries for 55 yards and a touchdown. And Amon-Ra St. Brown had 12 receptions for 106 yards and a touchdown. And that was leading them. Keep in mind, you got to keep in mind this is a division game, and in division games, even teams that it looks like, oh, they should just blow them out. It's weird, man. It just gets that way, and you don't. Sometimes teams don't win as convincingly, or sometimes even lose to division teams that they feel as though should win. Sorry, this might just roll by in a motorcycle. I don't know, right in the middle of it. Give me 1 second, that just messed me up. But for us people who talk a lot, y'all know how when you talk a lot, your mouth starts to get dry. Y'all get what I'm saying. Yeah, but the Lions, listen, sometimes you gotta win games ugly, and you gotta take that. It's a hard knock life out here, y'all. Sometimes you just gotta win ugly games and take that and move on to the next week. They're looking good. Detroit has a crazy crucial game this week against Dallas. A lot of playoff implications there. So I'm not changing. I have not changed my pick of the Detroit Lions going to the NFC Championship game. But I would like them to play a little bit more consistently. We'll play with consistency, and I'm hoping this week against Dallas that starts to happen. So that's where we at with that. Okay, let's move on. All right. So one of the games of the week that had a lot of playoff implications was the Cleveland Browns against the Houston Texans. We knew the Texans, they had a lot of players that were out, a lot of injuries. But Cleveland Browns won 36-22. All right, let's see. All right. So Davis Mills had 149 yards passing. He was 15-32, and he had 2 touchdowns. And then he got hurt during the game, and then Case Keenum came in, and he was 11-17 for 62 yards, and he threw 2 picks. Yeah, this Browns defense is nothing to play with. Devin Singletary had 9 rushes for 44 yards. Yeah, it was hard, boy. And what's his name? What's Schultz's first name? Dalton Schultz led them receiving with 8 receptions for 61 yards. Joe Flacco was 27-42 for 368 yards, 3 touchdowns and 2 picks. That looks like a Joe Flacco game. A lot of yards, touchdowns, and a lot of picks too. That's crazy. Joe Flacco hasn't changed a bit. Joshua Ford had 15 carries for 25 yards and a touchdown. Kareem Hunt also had a touchdown on the ground. Amari Cooper went off. He had 11 receptions for 265 yards and 2 touchdowns. Whew, if you got him in fantasy, you're like, yes. David Njoku also had a receiving touchdown. To me, this is a little unfair because the Texans have so many injuries. Like their top 2 wide receivers are out, and CJ Stroud is also out. So it's Tank Bell, CJ Stroud, and Nico Collins are all out. And I think that's very unfair for a team that showed a lot of promise this year. Y'all saw that I had to come on here and apologize to CJ Stroud because he just balled out. Oh yeah, he just balled out. So it's really unfortunate. Yeah, of course, I feel as though they're going to miss the playoffs. I definitely feel that they're going to miss the playoffs, and I think that's unfortunate. But damn if they ain't got a bright future. You know, I might be wearing these shades right now for their bright future. It's scary in the AFC South. They're scary. Now, in terms of the Browns, man, like the Browns are scary, man. That defense is scary. That defense is scary. Okay. And with Joe Flacco looking, I mean, turning back the clock, and doing things and keeping people engaged. Amari Cooper is looking like a problem again. Listen, the Browns have some injuries on there, so I want to see how they still gel. But that's a dangerous team. Like I don't think the Browns are a team that many teams are looking forward to playing in the playoffs, and they're definitely going to be in the playoffs. So depending on who they play, you know, they can squeak out a win. I do have my opinions on who they can beat. But for right now, like yeah, Cleveland's doing their thing, man. They just keep winning. Shout out to Cleveland, man. They ain't had a season like this my whole life. So is anybody that remembers when Cleveland had a season like this is like my dad's age. So that's that. Um, we'll go to this game. Seahawks. The Seahawks narrowly beat the Tennessee Titans. They beat them 20-17. It feels good on days like this where I get to go into more games and look at the stats and see what happened and for more teams. Because for the most part, I told y'all, your team sucks. I don't really got time to talk about y'all too much. Okay. That's just what it is. So Ryan Tannehill was 18-26 for 152 yards. Derrick Henry actually had a 12-yard touchdown pass too. Sounds crazy. Derrick Henry also had 19 rushes for 88 yards and a touchdown. Um, and their leading receiver is I can't pronounce his name. Chigoziem Okonkwo. Shout out to my man Chizzy. I'm calling him Chizzy. Shout out to Chizzy. Chizzy did his thing. He had 6 receptions for 63 yards and a touchdown. Who was that? Who was that? Uh, and Geno Smith, he was 25 of 36 for 227 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Kenneth Walker at 16 carries for 50 yards, no rushing touchdowns either. Dang, like it's crazy. Tyler Lockett had 8 receptions for 81 yards, no touchdowns. Jackson Smith-Njigba had 6 receptions for 61 yards. DK Metcalf had 56 yards receiving with a touchdown. And Colby Parkinson, he had a touchdown as well. So I feel as though this definitely was a letdown game for Seattle. Coming off of that big win last week against the Eagles, it was like a little bit of a letdown game playing a team that is not going anywhere, is towards the bottom of the league. That I feel that they played down, but there were some things about this that I actually like to say. So the fact that Jackson Smith-Njigba has been coming on the last couple of weeks, because in the beginning of the season he really wasn't doing too much, but he's been coming on the last couple of weeks, and I think having that, they could have the most complete wide receiver core going into the playoffs. And I know that sounds like a lot, but I mean, if he's coming on, you have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. That's going to be hard for somebody to stop, you know. So but I do like that they got to win. Like I said, sometimes you got to win ugly. I do like that they got the win and that they won, and then they kept it going after a big win. They didn't have such a bad game that they ended up losing. And I thought the Titans played well. I did actually see this game. So shout out to Seattle. I definitely now I can stamp them in as a playoff team, and I feel good to stamp them in as a playoff team. I didn't always feel good about that, but now I feel good about it. Seattle, y'all gonna be in them damn playoffs, man. And I want to see who y'all play too. Now, guys, hold on, guys, for a second. These playoffs are gonna be crazy. The matchups are going to dictate everything. You're going to see in these playoffs, I guarantee you're going to see some lower seeded teams advance. You're going to see some of these lower seeded wild card teams advance, and I can't wait to see how all of this plays out. You know, I'm very excited about this playoffs. I'm very excited about these playoffs. All right, moving on. All right, let's talk about this game. Fortunately, my Colts want to put up a dud. Um, the Atlanta Falcons. Let's talk right. The Atlanta Falcons got with my Indianapolis Colts. They beat us 29-10. Um, this is a game that I felt like as a Colts fan and somebody who watches the Colts a lot. This was a game I felt like the Colts should have handled, and they got handled. So I really didn't like what I saw. But let's go into some stats. Gardner Minshew was 20 of 37 for 201 yards, no touchdowns and a pick. Great. Jonathan Taylor had 18 carries for 43 yards and a touchdown. And Kyler Granson led us in receiving with 62 yards, 5 7 for 62 yards. But of course, there were no wide receivers. Like Will Mallory, who's another tight end, was the next receiver. Like they completely took away our wide receivers. They completely took away our wide receiver. And that's crazy. All right, let's look at the Falcons. Tyler Heineke was 23 of 33 for 229 yards and one touchdown. Bijan Robinson had 12 carries for 72 yards, no touchdown. And Tyler Algier, he had 9 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown. And Bijan led them in receiving with 7 receptions for 50 yards. And Kyle Pitts had a receiving touchdown. The story of this game to me is the Falcons defense. Um, they've had a good defense all year. I don't think they've had a defense that we would have expected to be this good. But they found a way to do it. They found a way to do that, and they dismantled a Colts offense that has been highly productive all year. Gardner Minshew, man, like I don't know. So you're all right. He's a backup. I get it, but right now you're starting, and you're in a position where you can get us in the playoffs, and you like now's not the time for you to look like a backup, and you look like a backup. That's what it is. Um, Made it very interesting for the Falcons because now they're 7-8. I don't know what that means for them in the NFC South. I have to keep looking into that. But in terms of the Colts, if the playoffs started today, we would be in the playoffs. However, we also have an elimination game this week, and I am calling it an elimination game with us and the Raiders. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But Raiders look, like I said, we'll talk more about it. The Raiders look like they're not coming in to play with us, you know? So I have to wait on that and think on that for a minute. I'll have my answer on that by the end of the episode. All right. Then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers also put a beating on the Jacksonville Jaguars. They won 30-12. Baker Mayfield had 283 yards passing with 2 touchdowns and no picks. That was a great game by Baker. Rachaad White, he had 20 carries for 39 yards and a touchdown. I mean, not much, but he did get a tutty, so that's what's most important. Mike Evans had 7 receptions, 86 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Very good week. You gotta take that all day, every day. And then Chris Goodwin, he had 6 receptions for 78 yards, no touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence, he went 17 of 29 for 211 yards, one touchdown, two picks, but then got hurt in the game. And then CJ Beathard came in. He was 11 to 15 for 94 yards and a touchdown. Trevor Lawrence also led them in rushing with 29 yards, which is probably how he got hurt in the first place. And then Evan Ingram turning back the hands of time was 10 receptions for 95 yards, no touchdowns. But CJ Ridley had 6 receptions for 90 yards and two touchdowns. The thing that really makes me mad about this game is that if we handled business like we were supposed to, we'd be in first place in the AFC South. Now I don't know what's supposed to happen. But I will say this: Tampa Bay is 8-7. I think they have a. I mean, now when I looked at it, I said to Jamal last week, the only way I'd take the Bucs seriously to win the division is if they beat Jacksonville. So now I'm taking them very seriously. I do still think they have an elimination game this week with the Saints. And I think that, yeah, we'll just wait and see with them. But in terms of the Jaguars, man, this ship is sinking. The Jaguars, man, they are going down, 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 down. The only reason why I think they're not going to be in the wild card is because, well, the Colts are the second place team, and I mean, we would have to win and them lose again, and I mean, I don't know if that's going to happen, you know. But yeah, Jacksonville is a sinking ship, and Tampa Bay, they look good. I'm curious to. I just want to see what's up with them. So see what's up with them when they play the Saints this week. Because if they lose, they would both have the same record. So then there'll be a lot of tiebreakers that had to do with that. And yeah. Let's see. Do we have any other games? Of course, we got more games. Okay. The Dolphins and the Cowboys played. That was a crazy game. It was a good game. It was a great game by both teams. Dolphins whole court at home. They win 20-22. Let's see. Dak Prescott was 20 of 32 for 253 yards and two touchdowns, no picks. Tony Pollard led them in rushing with 38 yards, but not much there. CeeDee Lamb had 6 receptions for 118 yards and one touchdown, and Brandon Cooks also had a touchdown. Now the Dolphins, Tua was 24 of 37 for 293 yards and one touchdown, no picks. Raheem Mostert led them with 46 yards rushing, but no touchdowns in anywhere. Tyreek Hill had 9 receptions for 99 yards, and Raheem Mostert was the only one with the touchdown. Listen, when I looked at this game, I thought this might be a bad matchup for the Dolphins. That is because teams with defenses that make you grind as opposed to allowing you to just have these big plays seem to be seem to be giving the Dolphins a hard time all year, and they have been the whole year. These teams with these defenses that make them grind have been giving them fits all year. And granted that I do think Dak Prescott is a better quarterback than Tua Tagovailoa. I thought this was a matchup that would be hard for them to win. With that said, Dallas, they played up and then then they lost to a team that seems to be a little bit better than they are right now. With that said, very excited for both of these teams going into the playoffs. I think the Dolphins needed this game more than Dallas, if we're going to be honest, because of what I said. Like, Dallas answered some questions about them. Because throughout the year we were pointing out that they didn't beat a good team. So they did beat the Eagles, you know what I mean, and everything. Actually took care of the Eagles. But like, the Dolphins never really had a game where we looked at them and said, okay, you've answered a question that we had about you. this was a question that I had about them, and they answered it. But one thing I would like to say, I've always said I wasn't as high on CeeDee Lamb as everybody else was, but he has been pretty consistent for where he is. And I will be the first one to admit his floor probably is higher than I thought it was. Um, if we're gonna have a conversation about his ceiling, we could have that conversation. And that's the point I have not changed about him. But yeah, he's been consistently this guy who's giving you 80 to 100 yards to sometimes 150 yards, and he's done that about like 8 times this year. So he's done his thing all year. Um, whew, we got a lot of games to go through this week, guys. We got a lot of games to go through this week. Um, the Patriots shocked the Broncos, and I thought the Broncos were definitely going to win this game, and they lost to the Patriots. Um, I'm not even going to stats with that. I think that eliminates the Denver Broncos this year. Now the Broncos being 7-8, I think that eliminates the Broncos from the playoffs and playoff contention. I mean, they're still in playoff contention, but I don't think they're going to get in. That loss was too much for them, in my opinion. In my opinion, I'm not even going to go into that. Now, with this Chiefs Raiders game, I'm definitely going to talk about that. The Raiders shocked the Chiefs, winning 20-14 and keeping their playoff hopes alive. Can't believe I'm saying the Chiefs first, but they did lose. Pat was 27-44 for 235 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 pick. He also led them in rushing for 10 carries for 53 yards. Isaiah Pacheco did have a rushing touchdown. Rashee Rice led them in receiving with 57 yards, and it really wasn't much more for them. Aiden Connell was 9-21 for 62 yards. Yeah, it was this Tim Tebow. Who is this guy? Okay, and he won too. Check him out. Was it Zach White? Zamir, excuse me. Zamir White had 22 carries for 145 yards. Jeez Louise. In Josh Jacobs' absence. That's amazing. That's amazing. And you know they ain't gonna be too much. I mean, Jacoby Myers had 42 yards receiving, but that's about that. First of all, I want to say shout out to Antonio Pierce, man. I am so happy for him coming into this role, being like people saying he's not ready for it, coming in, and excuse me, not coming in, but after the game, you can just see the emotions. Like, this is big for him. This is his dream come true. I remember them saying that the Raiders were his favorite team growing up. He's the head coach of his favorite team, and he's turned around a situation when the person that they believed in couldn't get the job done, and he's getting the job done. So I want to say congratulations to him, no matter what happens this year. I do think the Raiders are. I mean, just the situation that they got into with 8 losses, they're in an elimination game with the Indianapolis Colts, and even if they win, that does not mean that I think that they're going to the playoffs. But that would, in my opinion, eliminate the Colts because I'd be tired of seeing my team for this year. And but yes, I do think this is an official elimination game. Stamp this one for everybody. So for the Chiefs, man, like the thing about the Chiefs, they just look like Patrick Mahomes just looks like he's not comfortable, man. I don't know. Well, I mean, I know what's going on, but I don't know what they have to do to get these wide receivers to start playing like they like even average wide like an average wide receiving core. But like it's like they basically are looking at Pat and saying you have to be Superman for us to win, not against a good team, just like average teams. Like you have to be Superman for us to win, and I think that's completely unfair to Patrick Mahomes. A cautionary tale though for these teams paying their quarterback like top of the league money. This is what it looks like. This is what I try to see like everybody always thinks I don't like all of these quarterbacks. It's not that I don't like them. I just know what it looks like when a team pays their quarterback top of the league money. And the fact of the matter is, they can't have all the weapons that they want. It's a struggle. And if you don't have a kind of talent that allows you to compensate and say, all right, I don't need all of that to win a certain amount of games, it's going to make you look so bad. It's going to crush your career. It's going to crush your legacy and everything. Like, just keep in mind, Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, like might be the best quarterback of all time. I'm not. You can't say greatest because greatest is a period of. I mean, it takes a long time to get there. But Patrick Mahomes is like the best quarterback we've ever seen. We've never seen what he's done. I mean, and even him, 9-6, when when you got to figure all this out. I mean, 9-6. That's how it's crazy. You know what I mean? So I'm not moving off of them though, in terms of what I think. Not yet. I still got to see if they're able to get it together. And I want to know if they can figure out why they've looked so bad. All right. We're gonna get into these Eagles. Eagles barely beat the Giants, by the way. This guy, I mean, and the funny thing about this game, they was buzzing the Giants' ass for like 3 quarters, and it was just like, I mean, excuse me, for like 2 quarters, and then they just run into each other on a kickoff, and all of a sudden it's like, all right, this got interesting. But Jalen Hurts was 24 of 38 for 301 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. DeAndre Swift had 20 carries for 92 yards and a touchdown. And Jalen Hurts also had a rushing touchdown. A.J. Brown had 6 receptions for 80 yards. Devontae Smith had 4 receptions for 79 yards and a touchdown. Dallas Goedert also had 71 yards. Tony DeVito started 9 of 16, but then he got benched. And Tyrod Taylor had a very good game. He was 7 of 16 for 133 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 pick. Saquon Barkley went 23 or he had 23 carries for 80 yards and a touchdown. And Darius Slayton, he had 3 receptions for 90 yards and a touchdown. I will say this. So, like, yeah, I'm messing with the Eagles because they should have blown them out. They had such a lead, but this has way less to do with the Giants because we know they ain't doing nothing this year. Before the Eagles, what I will say is this. If I'm the Eagles, this is the formula that you want to see from their offense to figure, to go deep and make a playoff push. You want DeAndre Swift to have like 90 yards rushing. You want A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert to be your receiving targets, and you want to hit them a lot of times so that it keeps the defenses off kilter. You know what I mean? In terms of like, you want Jalen Hurts to have 300 yards passing. In terms of give me 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Hey, listen, that happens, but I'm not looking at them. So I would say this was a good grind out win for the Eagles. Very interesting that now the number 1 seed is back in play for them because of the 49ers, which we're going to talk about next. And but yeah, like the Eagles, like you're going to play the Giants again. You can't lose that game. Okay, you can't lose that game. So whatever we got to talk about for that, you can't lose that game. But like you definitely, I feel as though you got the Cardinals next week. That should be a win, and then you're gonna have the Giants again. If you run the table on that, let's see what's going to happen. Then in the game of the week, or at least it was that on paper. Hold, let me get some more water. So y'all know the people that talk a lot, y'all. I don't even have to tell you. You get cotton. Man, this works out a lot better when somebody is here for that reason, where I can drink and something's still going on. Because now I'm like, all right, this is just nothing happening while I'm taking a sip. That's fine. Baltimore Ravens took it 2. the San Francisco 49ers, and they won 33-19. Uh, let's see. Brock Purdy was 18 of 32 for 255 yards, no touchdowns, and count them, four interceptions. And then he got hurt, and Sam Darnold came in, and he tried to incite like a little comeback. He went 18 of 14 for 81 yards, one touchdown, and another interception. So 49ers had 5 picks today. Yikes. Christian McCaffrey was 14 carries for 103 yards and a touchdown. And George Kittle led them receiving with 120 or 7 receptions for 126 yards. Excuse me. Brandon Ayuk also had 6 receptions for 113 yards. Good for them, man. Good for them. You know, one thing I got to start reading more is defensive stats. I feel like if we ever took a step into more educating people about the game, then I would start reading defensive stats and saying what that means. But you know, we always got time limit. So, and then Lamar Jackson, Action Jackson, 23 of 35 for 252 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. Then he also had 7 carries for 45 yards. He led them in rushing as well. And then Gus Edwards had a touchdown. Zay Flowers had 9 receptions for 72 yards and a touchdown. And Isaiah Likely had 3 receptions for 56 yards. And Gus Edwards also had 1 reception for 39 yards. Normally I wouldn't bring that up, but it's about 39-yard average on receiving. Okay. 2 things that I want to say with this. Coming into this game, they said that the top 3 MVP candidates were in this game because both of these teams were the number 1 seed in their conferences. They were playing each other, and you know, usually the MVPs come from that place, that position. With that said, they said that Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey were both MVP candidates. Now, I have a question for everybody. Does everybody know what MVP means? Because MVP is an acronym that stands for Most Valuable Player. The opportune word that I'm pointing towards right now is most valuable. I don't ever know how you could say an MVP in the league or there's 2 MVPs candidates and they're on the same team. Then clearly one is not the most valuable. You know, now going back to Baltimore, to the Ravens, listen, we got to stamp this right now. Anybody that says Lamar Jackson isn't the MVP this year is just hating. Lamar Jackson is the MVP of this league. Give him his 2nd MVP and give that man his respect. And I want to go all the way back to when me, Cesar, and JB were having a conversation in the summer, and I said, I don't know if I would pay him. I checked myself too. Sometimes in terms of, where he plays, he might, he had some games where, like, for instance, he loses to Gardner Minshew. Okay. The ceiling for Lamar Jackson is, with all the injuries on his team, he can go into a team that everybody says is just too tough and go into their stadium and win and beat them convincingly. Lamar's stats are never going to be 350 yards a week. 4 touchdowns a week. Nah, that's not even where you want to be. Where I want to see Lamar Jackson, like I said, I want to see him throw for about 250 yards. Let's get like 2 touchdowns. Keep the picks low, and then I want to see him rush for about 60 yards. When he does that, the Ravens are a legit Super Bowl contender, and they can play with anybody, as shown. And that's the highest point for his impact. I can't say enough about what Lamar Jackson did this game, but that was greatness on display in that game. That's what greatness looked like. He had an inferior team playing a superior team, a superior team. Like nobody can argue. San Francisco's roster is definitely far superior than the Baltimore Ravens roster, and he goes in and he wins. He put on his cape. He showed you the S on his chest. He showed you the S on his chest. Lamar Jackson did his thing, man. Shout out to Lamar, man. For every conversation in where I was on the fence and where, for instance, Tazar, who is a Baltimore Ravens fan, and JB were basically saying in his defense, listen, I'm very happy to say that you proved that you just not only deserve the contract, but you were an elite quarterback in this NFL, and people were falling off of recognizing that. They tried to push you down a little bit on that list. Thank you for reminding everybody how great you are. Now with this loss, the 49ers, they're 11-4. They have a tie for the number one overall seed. But they, of course, they have the tiebreaker against the Eagles because they beat them. But I don't know what that means in terms of the Detroit Lions. I will look more into that. But the Baltimore Ravens, yeah, they're going to win this division. And they're going to, well, they already won the division, but they're going to be the number one seed in their conference. They definitely have a game this week against the Dolphins, and I'm curious to see how that all plays out. But yeah. Whew. Okay, so guys, that was week 16 in the books. In the books. So, because of segment purposes, we may just be jumping straight into next week and talking about a couple games for next week. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to finish out with that. Okay. All right, so we'll talk a little bit more about the rest of the games. Browns play the Jets. The Browns should win this game. I think it would be a close game. I'm not sure the spread on this game. I think it's going to be a close game, but the Browns should win. I don't know. Jets aren't bad, but they're just not a playoff team. But the Browns should win that game. All right, going next in terms of games to watch. Now, this is one of the games to watch. Cowboys are they home or are they in? Well, this is a Saturday game. Either way, the Cowboys are playing the Lions. I think the Lions might have caught the Cowboys at the wrong week. Coming off of a loss, I think the Cowboys feel as though they might need this game a little bit more. So I think I'm gonna roll with the Cowboys on this one. Detroit shocked me. You know what I mean? Show me something. Show me that you might even be better than I thought you were. And I picked you to be in the NFC Championship game. Show me that you're better than I even thought you were. Yeah, but I do have the Cowboys beating the Lions this week. Texans and Titans. I actually think the Titans are going to win and end the Texans' playoff hopes. But yeah, I think the Texans have too many injuries on their roster. Falcons Bears would not be shocked at all, even though they beat up on us. Would not be shocked at all that the Bears beat the Falcons. Matter of fact, I'm going to pick the Bears to beat the Falcons, and now we can argue with that. We can argue about that. And definitely the game to watch for this week: the Ravens against the Dolphins. Both teams coming off highs, playing. I just think Miami might win this game only because the Ravens coming off of a game where they played spectacularly. You know what I mean? That was spectacular. Usually there's always a comeback to earth. It's just the wrong team, wrong time. You know what? Forget that. No, I'm going with Baltimore in this one. This is the first time on Cuz You Don't Know Football history that I changed my pick. I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens to beat it for the same formula that I think. I think the Ravens defense is going to make it hard to have these explosive plays against the Dolphins. I think no, it's not that I think I know uh, 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 Lamar Jackson is better than CJ than Tua Tagovailoa. They can run the ball. I think the Ravens are going to win this game and assert their dominance going into the playoffs. All right, Bucks Saints. Saints, give me something, please, y'all. Can you give me something that says to still believe in you? Because I got a glimmer of hope, a glimmer of hope, a glimmer of hope. But I'm gonna pick the Saints to win this game. I'm gonna pick the Saints to win this game. They're at home, and the Bucks actually won in the beginning of the season. I don't think that they're going to sweep the Saints, so I think the Saints are going to win this game. And then I have questions of what happens after. I have questions of what happens after, like for the NFC South, and you know what I mean, the tiebreakers and stuff. I don't know. Buffalo playing the Patriots. Buffalo, you better not lose to the Patriots. I'm not even going to say nothing about that. You better not lose to the Patriots. I will cry laughing if you do. The Eagles, I think once again they should beat the Cardinals pretty convincingly. Not too much there. Jacksonville should beat the Panthers pretty convincingly. I mean, whether Trevor Lawrence plays or not, they should beat the Panthers in a game that they need. So we'll see about that. Colts and Raiders in an elimination game. Of course, I'm riding with my Colts. We better not lose to them. You know what I mean? The Raiders playing at a high. We coming off of a low. I think, like I said, I think we're a pretty a superior team and roster anyway. Incognito won a game and he threw for 62 yards. Luckily, his defense got 14 points in like 20 seconds, but that's here nor there. Yeah, so I think that's what's going to happen. I think the Colts beat the Raiders in one of the games to watch. Giants, Rams, you better not lose to the Giants. That's all I'm gonna say. You better not lose. Niners, Commanders, Niners are gonna bounce back. It's bad game. That's gonna be a blowout. That's a 21-point win. I'm gonna be honest with you. Steelers, Seahawks, very interesting. I think I got the Seahawks on this one. I think they're playing consistent now. And the Steelers are coming off of a high. I don't even know if Kenny Pickett's coming back or not, but even so, they got a rhythm, and they really never had a rhythm offensively all year. So I don't know what they're going to do, but Seahawks, if you're a playoff team, you need to handle business. And that's just that. Chiefs, Bengals, I'm rolling with the Chiefs. Both teams losing, but the Chiefs needing this game. Because if they're in real trouble if they lose this game. Be real with you. And Vikings Packers. I got the Packers at the Sunday night game, winning that because I think the Packers have a glimmer of hope. And like I said, I expected the Vikings to slide out of the playoffs. Oh, guys, we did it. We did it. We put our shades on and we did it just us. Just me. Once again, just me and you. Hey! Don't worry about nothing, man. Listen, when I'm finished with this, Tony is absolutely going straight on the radio. I just want you to know that's what's going on. Once again, guys, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Catch us on Spotify and YouTube for the full episodes, and TikTok, Instagram. Yeah, I mean, Facebook, we all over the place. We making moves out here. And just like I always got to do to everybody, I'm going to tell you too. Because you don't know football. I'm your boy, Reek. Just like Martin said, I see you when I see you. Peace.